Welcome to the Call Before Showing podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Allison, and we're here to talk to you about the real ups and downs of being in the real estate business.
Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to Call Before Showing. This is Alex, and I'm here with my co-host, Alison McPherson. Hey, girl.
Hello. Hi.
And today we have a guest. The best guest.
I don't
the
know.
best guest we've ever had.
I don't know about that. I do okay.
I'm kidding. He's an average guest, but he is my he's my very dear friend, Jake Hartline, and he's here to bring us a point of view from a person that
knows nothing about houses.
that
Pretty
is
much.
correct.
Yeah.
I named him a zero-time home buyer.
I saw that.
Average guest was what I had in my high school yearbook, so most likely to be an average guest on a podcast, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, are we helping you fulfill your dream?
You are.
You're
I
welcome.
love that.
I finally made it.
So we thought that it might be interesting to pick apart the brain of a millennial that has never considered buying a house and really just break down what that looks like, what questions he might have, maybe help us to market ourselves to this demographic a little bit better. What do you think, Allison?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the time we are speculating what somebody that hasn't bought a house would care about, right? So I think I'm super excited to find out what information would be helpful to somebody who hasn't contemplated buying.
And we know what we were thinking and feeling when we went to buy our first house, but I think that for our age, it's becoming less and less common to buy a house.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's always been kind of a dream to be like, oh, cool, I have my own house kind of thing. But the reality of it is student loan debt, and I don't have, a wife or a kid or anything. I don't need a whole lot of space because my space is just going to get cluttered with more stuff. And my stuff will just, I don't know. It just hasn't been a big thing on my list, but it has been something in the back of my mind as like kind of a dream scenario. If I could get a house, that would be great.
So I guess since I don't know you, Jake, I know you're friends with Alex and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
but I don't know you and our listeners don't know you. So I guess we should start with you telling us a little bit about yourself, where you live currently, what do you do for a living, and all that jazz.
I'm originally from Colorado, grew up in the northern part of Colorado, and currently I work in Los Angeles, so that's a big factor for buying a home to begin with. But I also work in the entertainment industry. I work in digital distribution, and yeah, that's
Can we
pretty
say
much
who
it.
you work for?
I work for Sony.
Cool.
I think they'll be okay with me saying that.
I don't think they'll care.
I don't think they'll care.
They'll be like, it's okay, he was just an average guest.
Okay, so you live in LA. So immediately I was like, okay, he lives in California, and so it's like expensive as hell to buy there.
Yeah, I don't have $1 million, so there's no way I can own a home. That is my thought going into anything in Los Angeles.
That's good to know. What if you were in Colorado? How would you feel about?
Colorado, I think, is kind of on the upturn with things. I've heard in the last few years that it's getting more expensive, it's getting pricier. A lot of people from LA are sick of the overcrowding and are moving out of state, and one of the states that's being really welcoming with a lot of film companies and a lot of stuff like that is
And
Colorado. And weed also. Marijuana for the non-consumer.
What do you do for fun?
I'm kind of a homebody, actually, which would be great for owning a home because I like to just keep it low-key. I'm a fairly cheap guy. I like to hike. I like to do some photo stuff every once in a while, go to some shows, go out. But a lot of what I do is home-based, and I'm trying to kind of fill my time with home activities.
And what does your current living situation look like?
I'm currently in a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment in Los Angeles with a roommate and a dog.
Is the dog your dog or the roommate's dog?
It's the roommate's dog.
Okay.
So I'm just a cool uncle.
That's awesome. So then we kind of talked a little bit about this, but what do you think is holding you back from purchasing a property of your own?
Honestly, finances. Like I said, I don't have $1 million, so why would I even try to own a house? I'm also one of those lucky people that has what the kids are calling student loan debt. So that also weighs on my credit score, which applies to getting a loan, and it just kind of, it makes me feel like, what's the point of even trying? I know I'm going to get denied for things, so why even put myself out there to just get rejected for it?
So there's a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Well, and so with that, have you ever reached out to a lender to like have them run your credit and tell you what you could buy in that area?
I have not.
Okay.
Would you be interested if there were an opportunity to get on a phone call with someone, give them a little bit of information, and then they were to tell you, listen, even if right now in this moment you can't afford the property that you're looking at, if you did A, B, and C, and then you would be able to afford that property, like, would you be interested in that kind of a consultation?
Yeah, absolutely. To just get any kind of advice. Like, a big thing for me coming out of high school even, and it's kind of a big thing going around the internet right now, is, you know, they teach you how to do A squared plus B squared equals C squared, but I have no idea how to do my taxes. And,
Right.
you know, it's any kind of consultation in terms of real estate and owning a home would be fantastic. I don't know anything.
Okay. So then would you go to something that was like presented as a financial class on a Wednesday night?
What would it take you to get there?
What would
I don't
it
know that
take?
you would. I don't think you would. Sorry that I
Yeah,
answered for you,
no,
but
go
I'm
for it.
wondering what would it take to get you to a class like that on a Wednesday night?
Honestly, I've just got to be in the right place financially. Like, I've got to have however much saved up, or at least a starting ground to know that it's a possibility for me, to then be able to look into, like, oh, well, I should find a class, or
Okay.
see what I can do.
Interesting.
You know, it's the idea of having a consultation is great, but if I don't feel confident in myself to be able to afford, not necessarily the consultation, but the advice,
Right.
then, you know.
Right. I think that's a little bit backwards. I think that getting the advice, even if you have $0 in the bank account, would be good because it's always going to stay in the back of your mind.
Right.
Throughout each paycheck, throughout each financial decision of how you're going to be able to use your money better and make the right moves to get to that place.
That's very true.
Well, and so I like have been toying with the idea of doing some sort of like happy hour, but with somebody who can like be there to talk to people about getting approved for a loan, because a lot of times people don't realize that you don't need 20% to put down. You don't need to be in like perfect financial standing to be able to buy a house.
Right.
And then in your situation, if you have a roommate and your roommate and their dog wants to come with you, like you could potentially have a portion of your mortgage paid for by that roommate, which would be awesome. And so it's one of those things that like, I think a lot of times you hit the nail right on the head in saying like, you don't have the confidence that it would go the way that you want it to go the first time. And I think that is what holds a lot of people back.
And I think you used a good trigger word if you're trying to get people to your class: happy hour. I think it would be beneficial for me, at least from my point of view, don't make it feel like a class.
Right.
That's the biggest thing for me, at least. I don't know. You can have booklets at a bar. You can learn things.
Or this is me speculating, but it's hard enough to get somebody to call somebody to talk to them about their finances, but then to get them to like get dressed, leave their house,
Yeah.
go to a thing, like there needs to be something that draws them there.
There's so much fear of rejection.
That's hard to put a finger on, especially because I don't necessarily feel that I have the confidence to even host the damn thing. So it's like a weird fear circle. Yeah. Because then what if I plan all of it and it's a happy hour and I make it sound fun and then nobody comes?
Or they come and they're having a great time and then you bring up buying a house and they're like, oh, I
This
don't
is a
like
sales pitch for something.
This. Yeah, now I'm going to have to buy lipsticks.
Yeah. I don't need Avon.
What type of information or marketing would attract you?
Yeah.
Really, social media. That's the big thing that I'm on. Hate to say most of the day, but most of the day, it's kind of what's most readily available to me.
Mm-hmm.
So phone calls, I don't answer my phone. If it's important, you're going to text me. I don't answer my phone. So cold calls, not a big fan of those. Emails, I check my email, but if I'm not specifically emailing somebody, I'm not really paying attention to it. So, social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, in the back of my mind while I'm scrolling through something, if an ad pops up for something, I'll take a look at that, save it, screenshot it.
What app are you most likely to be on out of those three, though? Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter?
I would say Instagram. It's also the easiest visually. I see ads there all the time of things that I'm relevantly interested in. I think it's something with their algorithm that if you're searching things, it'll pop in. And there have been numerous things that I've talked about, even thought about, didn't even vocalize.
I was going to say, even if you think about it, because they can read your mind.
If you got to the point where you felt that you were ready to move forward with purchasing a property, how do you think you would try to find an agent if you didn't know Alex already? So like Alex is an agent, obviously, and she could refer you to somebody in LA, but if you didn't know her, where would you start?
I do have a great agent in LA. If anyone does need a referral, she's amazing, and I'd be happy to send anyone her way.
Online, I would just search real estate agents, California, preferably Los Angeles.
You would search real estate agent California.
Just straight up Google it. Real estate agents, Los Angeles.
That's
risky. See what happens. I know, it's very risky. I don't feel that it's a very smart decision.
Would you get into the car with
It's the same way I found health insurance. It's the same way I find car insurance.
Okay, so Google.
So you just Google. Okay, y'all, we gotta be working on some
search engine optimization.
I am a child of the internet. As much as I don't want to be, it is a useful tool and can be used for the right purposes. So
would you Google rather than Instagram search? Like hashtag search?
Yeah, I don't think I'd hashtag search.
Okay. Interesting.
This is the part of the episode where we turn the tables. And Jake is going to ask us some questions.
We should put some music on in between there. Like, do, 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 do.
Welcome in, folks. It's me, Jake. I'm here.
Okay. Jake, take it away.
Oh, me?
Pretty sure I broke the mic with that that noise. Sorry, Alison.
It really popped.
I know. I really felt it. Felt it in my soul.
So, my questions are kind of scattered, and they're all over the place, but they're all real estate, so you get it. So, what factors do I need to consider when looking for a home? Like, I know there are certain things like, you want a good neighborhood for your kids, for your, you want good school system, you want close to work, that kind of thing. What other kind of factors are there that I need to be thinking about before I'm even looking at houses?
So my kind of rule of thumb for my clients is think about how you live today, and then think about how you think you'll live in about 5 to 7 years, and try to have something in like a happy medium between those things. So if you're married and you think eventually you'll have kids, don't buy a 2-bedroom house because you're going to outgrow it pretty quickly. So if you're single right now and you think in 7 years you might have somebody else living with you who is a partner or whatever, kind of plan for 5 to 7 years ahead.
Okay.
Just so that you're not needing to sell and buy something else when you have like one life change.
Right.
If you have several life changes, then you've probably lived there for long enough to have enough equity to be able to sell and all that jazz. Ideally, if your budget allows that to happen. If your budget doesn't allow it to happen, make sure you're buying in a place that will continue to grow in value over time, and your agent can help you look at the history of a neighborhood and see if it's growing in value or stagnant.
I had a thing going back to earlier what we were discussing about millennials and what is holding you back from wanting to buy a home. And you said looking into the future, 5 to 7 years, where do you plan to be? Where do you think you're going to be? And I think for a lot of us, we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants. Our lives are drastically different than our parents were. So it seems a little more difficult to plan ahead. And I think that is also a big factor holding us up because there's a lot of variables these days.
Right. There's a lot more movement from jobs. Like you're not getting a job and then retiring at that job.
Right.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, how much of a commitment do I want to put behind this if in 2 years I'm going to get a job somewhere else?
Right. It's like a doubt that you'll be wanting to be in the same place for that long. Okay.
So I think that you definitely want to know that you're going to be in this place for the next year or two. That's something you want to know for sure. I also think that there are people that have more of a fear of commitment than others. I know I personally want to have everything mapped out because it tones down any anxiety. But I know that you have never really been like that. And you have always just been like, I'm working on now, working on today, maybe tomorrow, but anything after that is like, who knows? So I think that you definitely want to know you're going to be there short term, but there's so many options if you were to go to a new job or if you were to have some big change that caused you to move far away, you can always turn that into an investment property. Make sure that your agent, you can ask them to provide you with that information. Knowing that you may or may not be there in a couple years, you can say, okay, so I see that the value is good for living here, but what would the value be like for turning it into an investment property if I were to leave in a couple years? And then if you do have that investment property and you move to another place, you can end up accruing these like investment properties, and that looks really hot on a dating profile.
Yeah. Definitely have that conversation with your agent too. Like, hey, I don't know how long I'll be here. I do want to plan on renting this thing out eventually. And then be sure you're checking all of the documents in regards to that property, because if it's in homeowners association or a condo association, they may have like rental caps on it that you want to be aware of. Because if there's a cap on how many people can rent a place, if it has hit the cap already, then you can't necessarily rent it. So it's just something that your agent and you will want to be aware of through the process so that in the future you'll be able to rent it kind of at your free will.
Those are options I didn't really think about going into it.
Also, I think what you're talking about is kind of that FOBO thing. I think I've talked about it on here before, and it's fear of a better offer. And it comes with that whole switching around jobs and just kind of moving around so much. And I think it's totally appropriate to tell yourself, listen, I want to have peace of mind for the next 2 to 3 years, and I'm not going to go out and job search. I'm going to give myself those 2 to 3 years to not job search.
I'm going to be comfortable.
Be comfortable, be content. Honestly, I had to do that with West because he is the kind of guy that is always looking for the best career opportunity, which is so wonderful because he's very ambitious. But when we made this move, it was so challenging that I had to say, okay, you got to give me 3 years. Like, give me 3 years where you don't send out any applications and let us just enjoy this and settle in and be here. And then when that 3 years is up, we'll reassess. So, I think that's something that a lot of people our age struggle with, is that FOBO. And sometimes it's okay to just say, what I have right now is good. I'm going to enjoy it and be present and then reassess when that deadline is up.
It's good to be content for a little bit. So we kind of talked before about that I would look online for a house more so than contacting a real estate agent.
Right.
So what red flags, when discussing with a real estate agent, should I be looking out for to make sure that they're doing their best to get me the house that I want and they're not just trying to make a sale?
I think a big thing is if they're listening to you. You can always tell if someone's listening to you. You can always tell if someone's picking up what you're putting down. And if someone's not listening and keeps pushing something onto you that you're not even interested in, then I would say that's a huge red flag.
Okay.
I think it's good if you have a conversation with them over the phone or in person and get a feel for how they work, get a feel for what their strategy is, what's important to them. Ask them for advice and listen to what their advice is. And if their advice sounds really weird and messed up, it is.
Well, moving on to the next set of questions that I have. You've convinced me now to go for a house.
But who are you going to work with, me or Alison?
He likes me better, Alex.
I know.
So, going into an open house, what are the main things I need to be looking for? Aside from, my general interest that it's essentially the area I'm looking for, it's close to work, it's the right amount of rooms that I need for my next 5 to 7 years. What other factors going into an open house do I need to be looking for? What questions do I need to be asking?
Okay, let's see. So you have the general idea of how much you want to spend and the size, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know the area you're looking in. I think important things to consider are what kind of property it is. So if it's a condo, if it's just a regular house that you're going to own outright, you should know how much, if there are any associations like HOA or condo association, you should know how much that is. You should know how much the taxes are. I mean, in LA, taxes are so expensive that's like adding on a second mortgage, you know?
Right.
So those are questions that are great to ask. And then ultimately, if you've chosen an agent that you feel comfortable with, they're going to take care of a lot of those things for you. You can always ask, like, can you get me any more information, or what other information would there be about this house, or just, you know, kind of that blanket question. They're going to bring you more and more.
Yeah. And I would say, okay, if you're going to an open house, for me, I'm like a person that it needs to feel right. It needs to feel like home. It needs to look like the person took care of it, you know. Look for things that look like red flags, stuff in this, like water in the ceiling, or if it just looks in disrepair.
Yeah, it's hard because those are also things that you're going to find in an inspection, and
yeah,
not every buyer is going to understand these kinds of things. I think that a lot of buyers don't really understand what materials go into a house and how that all works together. And so, yeah, you can look for water damage, or you can look to see if anything looks like it's crumbling, but a lot of first-time buyers don't even know what a good roof is supposed to look like, or what a bad roof looks like, you know? And so it's really up to choosing a really great home inspector, a really great agent, a really great lender to help you through that process. And I think that that's why they get paid what they get paid, is because they're really your consultants, and they are going to protect your interest.
You already touched on some of them with the homeowners association, the roof, those kind of things. What other factors thinking about when buying a house that kind of come up surprise? Because you mentioned homeowners association,
Yeah.
wasn't even thinking about it.
It's really up to the people that you choose to know those things. It's going to depend on the area that you're in. It's going to depend on the kind of house that you're looking for. That's a really hard question to answer because there are so many variables always at any given property. Allison and I know what to look out for, you know, and we have really great home inspectors that know what to look out for.
Yeah. That's why there's a bunch of tech companies starting you can open your own lockbox and buy the house on your own, and you can save money because there won't be any realtors involved. But I just feel that while there may be some people who buy that way, it's such a complicated process, and it's so different based on every single locality and state. Like, every state has different real estate laws. Every area, like even in where I am
versus where I am.
Well, yeah.
It's totally different.
Right. I mean, 30 minutes from where I am, they have completely different customs. So having a technology company take that over, it will be interesting to see it go down, but I don't think they'll be able to replace agents, because the local knowledge is where that's where we differentiate ourselves from anybody else. And we can help people that much better. And so I have a question for you. A lot of people say millennials don't want to buy houses because they don't want the responsibility of being a homeowner. Like, if something breaks, they don't know what to do or whatever. Is that a factor for you?
I mean, a little bit. I would say yeah, but at the same time, you know, water heater's out. Google it.
Yeah, you have Google. I mean, our parents didn't have Google.
Yeah.
I have several books of just things you should know that are just little home improvement tips kind of things.
I love that.
You have to tell us what those books are so that we can get them for our first-time home buyers.
I will let you know when I get back to Los Angeles.
Do you want to know a fun fact about Jake?
Yes.
He officiated my wedding.
What?
So Jake married me.
That's a joke we tell to everyone.
I think this was really insightful.
I agree. I learned a lot.
I was just going to say, I thought it was really helpful because I'm thinking in terms of like marketing and talking to people that have doubts about buying, it's all about talking to relieving their fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's a big commitment. And it's a commitment that I was raised thinking you buy a house, you're in it for life kind of thing. And that's not the case.
Okay, are we ready for a little round of this or that?
Yes.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
Game of Thrones or Handmaid's Tale?
Game of Thrones. Just because I haven't seen Handmaid's Tale. I have nothing against it. I just haven't seen.
YouTube or Netflix?
I'll go YouTube, actually. I don't know. You can find something that is relevant to your tastes and what you're interested in and then dig in a hole for 14 hours.
Dogs or cats?
I want a cat, but I want a dog. Both? Can I say both? I'm saying dog because I'm actually thinking about getting a dog.
Mansion or tiny house?
Tiny house. There are those little mini homes, those like $10,000 little mini homes that people can buy, and really you're just purchasing land. And that's been something that has been kind of an interest to me just because it's its own self-sustaining little thing.
So what I have to say about that is that a realtor can help you buy the land. We're not going to be able to help you buy the actual tiny home. Right. And my dear, I love you so much, but you live in LA. Where are you going to find land?
You didn't specify. You said this or that. I don't want a mansion. What am I going to do with 18 rooms?
If you want a tiny home on some land, you're not going to be able to be right in the city.
And you still have to think about, you have to connect to some form of utility. So
where are you going to poop?
Where are you going to poop and where are you going to get your water from? These are things that a lot of people don't think about. Because I saw this thing that like Amazon was selling $2,000 houses and people were like, I'm going to buy one. I'm going to buy one. And I'm like, no, you're not, bitches.
Yeah, it folds out in like 6 hours. Yeah.
Everybody has to poop.
So in terms of tiny house versus mansion, I would say tiny house.
Yeah.
Just because I don't need a lot of space. I'm a pretty comfortable, cozy guy. I don't have a lot of stuff.
Okay, if we're talking about in the city, are you choosing a penthouse or are you choosing a bungalow?
In the city, I would say penthouse. I like that idea.
Thanks for being here. I love you very much.
Love you too.
I love you too. Third wheel status over here.
All right, guys, you know where to find us. At Call Before Showing on Instagram and Facebook. We have a Facebook group. A little Facebook community that Alison runs. And if you want to chat, you can find us there. You can also email us at callbeforeshowing@gmail.com if you want to just connect or have any ideas for future episodes or people you would like to hear us interview. We would love to do that. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Catch you later.